which is almost all the Star Wars actors. Before I bring our guests out, I'm going to talk a little and do a Q&A. And I just want to tell you up front that there are 2 questions I will not hear, and neither will they. And I'll answer them right now. Number 1, yes, it was hot inside those suits. Number 2, no, they're not in episode 2, and they can't talk about it. Okay? So let me bring out our guests in order. I'm going to bring them out in no specific order, but I want to give some a little more time. First off, the gentleman who played Luke Skywalker's uncle, Owen Lars, in Star Wars Episode 4, as they're calling it now, A New Hope. Let's have a nice warm welcome for Mr. Phil Brown. Phil, as those of you who are film fans may know, also has done a massive body of work, including a lot of stage work in England, on the West End, a lot of films in the U.S. He worked with Lon Chaney and some of the Inner Sanctum films for Universal. He's done a lot of stuff, and once we get everybody on stage, we'll let each of them talk about themselves individually. Okay, second is the tallest man in Star Wars, and one of the biggest men I know, Chewbacca himself, Mr. Peter Mayhew. Okay, third, someone who's slightly smaller but has a very long, very varied career. The guy you know is R2-D2, Mr. Kenny Baker. And finally, the Darth Lord of the Sith himself, the guy who all the episodes of Star Wars have something to do with, Darth Vader himself, Mr. David Prowse. And before we start up, I would like to say I want to thank Alex Ross for his comments about LucasCorp. And in 20 years, we'll see if they still remember him. But in any case, on Tuesday, on Monday, I'll make a phone call, and on Tuesday, men in white helmets will burn his house down. And I want to open it up for the panel first. If you guys would just introduce yourselves and give a little background on what you've done, and then we'll let go to Q&A and make it easier for the fans. So Phil, if you please.
Well, my name is Phil Brown. I've been an actor since I graduated from Stanford. Louder? Can't you hear me?
The mic.
Well, I'm talking right into the microphone. Is that better? Okay. I've been an actor for a lot of years. Obviously, I was never heard. That's probably why I got away with it. No, I graduated from Stanford University. You may have heard of that. In 1938, I think. Then I went to New York, and I joined the group theater. I was very lucky to do that. It was a very famous theater in New York. And then I drifted to Hollywood, and I began to act in films. And then I was blacklisted. How many people in this audience know what the Hollywood blacklist was about? Well, quite a surprising number. It's not a good thing to be on. I suggest you don't get on the blacklist of anybody. But I was on the blacklist of a lot of important people who eventually made it impossible for me to work in Hollywood anymore. People like J. Edgar Hoover, Ronald Reagan, the American Legion. And I had once been to England to play in a play called The Glass Menagerie by Helen Hayes. And so when the curtain came down for me in Hollywood, I was invited again to go to England. And I went and I stayed for 25 years. I wasn't wanted in America, but the Queen liked me very much. I think she did. They couldn't get rid of me. That's what Easter said. Is that what you said? I thought that's what you said. They couldn't get rid of me. Anyway, I had a good life in England. I lived on a houseboat on the Thames, which was a beautiful way to live. I went to Yugoslavia to make a film and fell in love with the country and the people. And I went again and again and again, and finally divided my life between Yugoslavia and England. And then my two grown-up sons, who are somewhere in the 50s, I think, aren't they, Ginny? 50s? In the 50s, she says. She knows. She brought them. I'm with everybody here into the world. They said I was too old to live on a houseboat because you had to take care of the houseboat yourself. You couldn't get anybody else to take care of it. So we came back to California. And that pleased her because she said,
No mic.
Try the one on your left. On your left. The other left.
Hello.
That's it.
Right. Well, first of all, can I? I'd like you probably saw me sort of hobble up the stairs. I'm on a crutch. Can I first of all? I want to say thank you to everybody who's been to see me over the weekend and to sort of give me their sort of best wishes and things like that over the illness I've had over the last 6 months. I was struck, as it were, in February with a blood disease of all things, and it's surged around the system. And it wasn't until about two months after I'd had the first bout of it that they discovered that I had an abscess at the base of my spine, and the abscess was poisoning the blood system and going around and depositing the disease in various joints. And I had terrible problems with the shoulders. I had paralysis in my shoulders and arms, and my legs, and my hip, and my back. And I've had a really bad spell over the last 6 months. But fortunately, the last time I was in hospital, they discovered that I had this abscess, and they're treating me with all sorts of antibiotics, buckets full of antibiotics, and bed rest and things like this. And hopefully I'm on the mend. Keep your fingers crossed. I'm not walking very well at the present moment, but I'm feeling 100% better. I feel great myself, but I'm a bit despondent about not being able to walk so well. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for everybody that's come up and offered me their best wishes. And thank you very much. Anyway, it really has been wonderful to hear all that from you. If you want to talk about my career, I started out in life as just wanting to be, at the age of 15, I just wanted to be Mr. Universe of all things. And I trained for 9 years solidly, and eventually got invited to enter the Mr. Universe contest, which meant I was one of the top 20 physiques in Great Britain at the time. And at the end of the competition, the judge came up to me and said, "Well, I'm sorry, but you will never win the Mr. Universe contest because you've got ugly feet." And so that was the end of my bodybuilding aspirations, as it were. And I then turned over to weightlifting and became the British heavyweight weightlifting champion. And I was champion in 62, 63, 64. I did the World Championships and the Empire Games. And then I had a professional act. I used to call myself Britain's Strongest Man. And then I came into show business. I got my first job in a play in the Mermaid Theatre in London. And then from there I went to doing TV commercials and then TV series and then films. The first film I did was Casino Royale, which is a James Bond spoof. I don't know whether anybody ever saw it. It was a terrible, terrible movie. I followed it with a succession of terrible movies. Although in between there was some quite nice ones, like Clockwork Orange came along, which was a great movie for me. A great experience working with Stanley Kubrick. I went out to Barbados and worked with Russ Meyer, of all people, on a film called Black Snake. And then of course Star Wars came along in 1976. And at the same time as Star Wars came along, I also became the figurehead of the British government's Child Pedestrian Road Safety campaign we call the Green Cross Code. And for 14 years, it was the greatest job I've ever had in my life, including including Star Wars. For 14 years, I traveled all over the world giving talks to children in schools